to unleash your inner Goldilocks, how to get it just right. I am so excited to join you for another hour of insightful and deeply meaningful conversation. You are absolutely going to love our topic today and my special guest today. So keep in mind, my special guest is Mr. Jay Levin. He is the founder, president, and the CEO of the nonprofit organization Equip Our Kids. And today's conversation is going to be about the importance of equipping kids with human skills today for social and emotional resiliency tomorrow. You may ask, Cass, what has Goldilocks taught us in terms of being prepared to have this conversation? How is the Goldilocks show connected to this kind of a topic? Goldilocks is about making sure she gets things just right. She wants to make sure she doesn't show up too hard, too soft, too hot, too cold. Imagine if we raised our children so that they show up just right to function in this world and thrive, so that they do their best, they live their purpose, and they make this a better place because we have enabled them and ennobled them to be so. Mm-hmm. Think about the power of that. We tend to, in our education system, teach young people technical skills, and everything is emphasizing IQ. It's IQ and testing, IQ and testing. But what if we took a step back and think about what makes a person successful in life? 80 to 90% of a person's success is directly correlated to their emotional intelligence, their emotional quotient, EQ. How do we then allow young people to cultivate that? Not when they're 21 and they enter the workplace and they hear about it, but from pre-K through 12, make that a part of their development so that they have it embraced and they allow it to resonate throughout their life and make life choices informed by that. And what is EQ? What is that going to teach our children? What is that going to do for us as adults, right? Emotional intelligence has 4 components. Understanding self and managing self by being self-aware, and having the second one is the ability to manage self, right? Being self-aware, if I don't know who I am and how I'm feeling and how I'm doing and what needs to happen for me to live my purposeful life, then I'm not showing up for me. If I can't show up for me, I can't manage me, I can't lead me, therefore I can't show up for anybody else. So EQ is teaching us how to become self-aware, how to self-manage. And the third element it's teaching us is how to build viable relationships. And then fourth one is how do you leverage those relationships to build a meaningful society and make conscious choices to live mindfully. When we give these skills to young people, we are teaching them how to navigate challenges in life. We are helping them build human resiliency that is beyond any of the technical things they're going to get. And success in life requires both those, right? And so as we get into the conversation today, I want us to keep in mind, we need to, as individuals, become emotionally intelligent and up our EQ capabilities in addition to our IQ. And then we need to raise our children, whether they're biologically ours or not, that doesn't matter. They're all our kids and they're the ones who are going to run our future, right? When I'm a little old lady and I'm retired, I don't want to worry about, are they thinking it through right? Are they thinking through the consequences for different people? Are they able to take perspective? What if we give them the tools today and then down the road, we can just relax knowing that we put it in capable hands. That is the lesson I want us to keep in mind as I welcome my guest today. Jay, welcome to the episode.
Thank you, Kasia. I'm very happy to be here and to know about the quality and express of your audience. It's quite wonderful.
My honor. So for this full disclosure, I am a member of the Equipa Kids board, and it has been an honor to work with Jay. With that said, what got you started in this arena? Because it's something one grows up saying, I'm going to start a not-for-profit and I am going to teach young people how to develop their emotional quotient.
Good question. So the way I like to answer that question is many people in the world, I came from a semi-dysfunctional family, not tragically dysfunctional, but semi-dysfunctional. And the atmosphere around it was a lot of quibbling, fighting, quibbling. My mother would have fights all the time with different relatives. My parents would quibble all the time. And my response to that was to keep my distance, not engage, keep away, which in life, something I had to learn to get past. And my mother was very authoritarian, which is something else I had to learn to deal with in life, people who are authoritarian. But it left me with a sense of, real sense from very, very young, that there's got to be something better in the world out there. So I'll give you the bullet points of what happened. So that was a driver for me. I didn't even realize what a driver it was until I became a journalist, basically through the hands of God, very young. And and I was interested in, I found myself interested in anything that made positive social change. And I got curious about the inner workings of people. And I had an opportunity to, I became very, very early, I became a young star, writing star at my paper. So I asked them, I learned about modern therapy techniques being used in drug treatment. There was coverage then of organizations called Phoenix House and others like it. And so I was interested in doing a deep dive into it. And I did that deep dive. I spent some months watching in group therapies, individual therapies, following the trail of people who were there. And it confirmed for me something I already had suspected. And to boil it down, it's a very simple formula, right? Almost all pain, human dysfunction, negative behaviors, all that is a lack of skills to deal with what life throws up at you. The fact is, it's not only a lack of skills, it's a maltraining to deal with what life throws at you. And when you get a set of skills and a different mindset behind those skills, you get different results. So I understood very young that the world is in effect. The cause of how the world shapes itself, relates to itself, is how we're trained to deal with it or maltrained to deal with it. Right? So after that, I began writing about other modalities in the human development movement, not exclusively, but it was one of the things I did. Flash forward some years, I leave my newspaper, I come out to Los Angeles, and I start an urban weekly an alternative urban weekly called the LA Weekly, which at its peak, we grew to be the biggest in the country, 250 pages a week, lots of advertising, 500,000 readers a week, et cetera. And we made a major difference in LA. And we, of all the similar urban weeklies around the country, the granddaddy being the Village Voice in New York, we were the only ones that covered the human development movement, right? Flash forward some years, I've done some social media. I've started nonprofits in dealing with social issues. And I've taken a master's degree course in spiritual psychology, found out I had some chops in it. So I spent some part-time work just with the students, and then they would send their friends, coaching them, but actually having the experience of seeing people's lives change through what I was teaching them and the practices I was taking through, rather than just observing it as a journalist. So that only confirmed it. Flash forward a few more years, somebody tells me about the school programs called social emotional learning. And I go visit some schools and I'm blown away. I am absolutely like thinking, this is paradise. This is the way human beings ought to be learning to relate to each other. These kids are 8, 9, 10 years old, and they are brilliant. They are present. They are loving. They have a conflict. They solve it on the spot because they've been trained to solve conflicts, right? They're learning like crazy. And it was just, the first school I went to had almost no discipline incidents. Kids would solve problems on their own. Mm-hmm. It would be, and it had been a school that had not been there. It had been a school with a lot of difficulties. So I was enthralled by that. Next thing that happened in a major way was a friend of mine and an Indian billionaire got together to create I'd done a little bit of coaching with this friend to create a nonprofit that would deal with making peace in the world. My friend was and doing something about poverty in India together. Okay, it's an American friend and this billionaire. And my friend calls me up and says, "Oh, come talk to me about this. I could use your help. You've got a lot of experience in this area." So I did. I went to talk to him, and he said, "Tell me the whole thing." And I said, "What are you going to do about making peace in the world?" He says, "Well, we'll do the Gandhi lectures, and we'll support these peace groups." And I said, "Okay, how effective has that been in the world that you see? Do you see it making peace in the world?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, from my point of view, it's BS. It's more BS because it misses the major point, right? Peace is a skill. You can't be John Lennon and you can imagine it. It's a skill set. You have to know how to relate to your inner life, your impulses to hurt other people, to antagonize other people, to defend yourself, etc. And you have to learn how to relate to people in different issues of conflict, and heal your mind of I have to be one up, one down. Am I doing well enough? The whole judgmentality game that we get downloaded for eons in every culture in the world. Am I good enough? I'm good enough, et cetera. Of course, it all comes from hierarchical culture training. I do a lecture on an hour or so lecture on how we're maltrained generations to generations and pass it on. When I took the master's degree course in spiritual psychology, we did this exercise in identifying in our own families generationally how harmful behavior, self-harm, and harmful mindsets. My grandfather was an alcoholic and nasty as could be. Made all the women in my mother miserable, made his wife miserable. All the dynamics of family dysfunctionality passed from generation to generation, and creating people who are on guard against each other, tribing up against the other, and not knowing how to solve conflicts in the world because they're not trained to. So it became a motto that all human dysfunctionality, pain, right up to war, right up to the fact we have nuclear weapons pointing at our heads as we sit here.
Today too. Nothing has changed.
And we're facing potential ecocide because comes from the idea, the core simple proposition that I got to win, you got to lose, etc. And we don't have universal skills for collaboration. Mm-hmm. So they've, so the next day I got a call. I explained all this to my friend. The next day I got a call from my friend who said, we want to hire you to run the foundation. And I agreed, and I went off to India, et cetera. And one thing led to another, and my friend made some terrible mistakes, and it all fell apart, even though we were doing great. But he made some terrible mistakes. So that went away within 2 months, that whole concept. So I went back to running media companies, and flash forward a few years, and I'm bored running another, even though it was a good one, running another media company, and I'm not happy about it. I'm thinking, what's the most important thing I could do in the world to be in service to, and what's the most important movement I know in the world that has the potential to make the difference that the human species needs before we blow ourselves up. I'm that serious about it. And I think if we can get social emotional learning, which is a boring term, in every school in the world, in every school in America starting, and then in the world, we have a shot, because we need to train ourselves to be in the world in a collaborative, healthy, co-creative way, rather than in I'm going to win, you're going to lose way. Mm-hmm. So, so I looked into the movement, the education movement, and what was happening in America was it was a conversation developed by child development experts and educators many years ago, developing the first programs and organizing it around an organization in Chicago called Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning. And I thought, they had no outreach to the public. Nobody ever heard of this stuff, social emotional learning. Parents were like completely oblivious. And the grassroots organizing outside their conversation among trying to get other educators to, think about adopting these programs, which was then about maybe 8% of schools. This goes back 6 years now. Was not very encouraging either. So I thought, well, this is a huge gap, and I'm gonna. We were supposed to have $20 million to start the foundation, and we I thought, I'm not going to have $20 million to start this, but I want to go do this. So I brought some friends together who had been doing really good work and philanthropic work around youth development, especially in poverty kids, kids of children of color, children of poverty, et cetera, and have developed good programs around that, caring programs. And I said, this is a big deal. We need to get this to all those kids so they can thrive in life and have the skills to thrive in life. So I visited some schools with them, and we started this. And the main mission was, given art skills and knowledge, business skills and knowledge, was let's become the PR agency, the marketing agency on a completely pro bono basis. We charge for nothing for the entire movement. And so we looked at that. We started creating media for the movement. It was obvious and quickly proven out that you could not sell social emotional learning. It was a brain deadening term. So we were looking at for what we could use using Google ads, Facebook ads, et cetera, free social media, what would work. And what work would turn out to be quite simple. If you talked about raising people's emotional intelligence and linked it to the life skills of being able to manage yourself well, manage your relationships well, have success in life, and broke it down into some of the psychological ways kids relate, their anger, their emotional behaviors, et cetera. That became clickbait. So we started pumping that out, and then we started sharing it with the groups out there. And a couple of years into that, we started looking into what would need to be done on the grassroots level. When we found there were these state alliances that had brought together educators and program providers, and to lobby on the local levels, district levels, state education department levels, and national and legislative levels, and they were being effective. So we started helping those alliances with their media, make them more effective. And we started one in California because we didn't have one. It was right that today has a great executive director, its own corporate identity, and has 3,100 educators and really making a difference in California. So between the two things, the media we do all nonstop, all the time, and helping the grassroots organizations, social emotional learning is starting to spread. Has been spreading across America now pretty heavily. The biggest boost we've had in years came from the mental health crisis from COVID, where kids were coming back to school really, really messed up, and by the millions. And the Surgeon General declared a mental health crisis and asked for social emotional learning in all schools. And Biden put the first serious money behind it. So we're now on a curve upward in terms of adoption, with the second stage problems of how do we implement these in the schools from nothing. So that's where we are. That's my long rant, and I hope people found it.
What an amazing
journey.
What an amazing journey. And I see how you have connected your experience to what the children are experiencing today. And how do we break the cycle, right? Generational behavior keeps getting perpetuated until someone consciously chooses to break that cycle. Two things you said resonated with me. I want to delve a little deeper. Mental health is directly correlated to being able to be emotionally intelligent. Do I understand me? Can I relate to me? And then how do I take that and go and relate to others? And the other thing that resonated with me is we need to break the cycle of winners and losers. Life is not about winning or losing. Life is about collaborating and co-creating so that we lift the bar up for everybody. And there is value in that. There is power in that. And children take to it naturally. A good example that comes to my mind about something that happened to me just 2 days ago. I have an electronic gate here in Belize, and with the storms and everything, that got stuck. And I had to actually undo the mechanics to clean it all out and rebuild it. And I didn't have the tools, and I couldn't open the gate. I had to pull the car out. And I spoke to one of the kids in the neighborhood who just comes and hangs out here, loves my food, loves to tell me all the stories about what happened in school. I have about 8 kids who hang out in my garden every evening. And this kid went and brought the other kids. They went through their father's tool sheds. And I had an array of tools to choose from, and we fixed it. And as we are fixing it, this one 12-year-old runs home and brings a handful of candy. And I took one. He says, no, all of this is for you. You've had a bad day. Here, all of this is for you. Hope that makes you happy. Adults don't think like children do, right? Children inherently have what it takes to be kind to one another, to be gentle with one another, to share. And what if we cultivate that and show the value of that to children so that they learn from each other and not some of the bad behaviors that are win or lose. I need to succeed, therefore I need to dim your light. Adults tend to go about this the wrong way. And I love how you are focusing this on the kids, and from the children, parents are going to learn. How are you seeing that happening? Because it's hard to train the adults But when children are trained, they go home and transform the adults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the answer, you're right. Children do affect their adults. Some of them come home and just say, "You're not allowed to talk to me that way anymore," as they get stronger. But that's all over the place. A thing about the movement is at some point it has to take on the parents, right? Because the parents are passing along the memes and the behaviors and the ways of controlling that really make a difference. If it's okay, I'll share a bit now about some of the bullet points of a lecture I give about child development. Okay. And I'll share it, and I would ask your audience to think about their own childhood and their own behaviors and what they can relate to about what I'm going to say in their own lives. Okay. So first of all, just for this period, just while I'm talking about this, I'm going to change my background. Okay. So I'm going to choose a different background. Okay. And then I'm going to get out of the way for a moment so everybody can see the background. So these are the two images. This is the image at the top of our website, equipourkids.org. And what it represents to us is where we are naturally, right? Where children are naturally before we start training them in all the processes that have created all the wars, the mental processes and the relating processes that have created all the wars and all the conflict and most of the crime and most of the poverty and most of everything we think is like socially crazy in the world, right? So if that's what we come in with this kind of loving spirit and care, and children are learning machines, loving machines, and creative machines. They start drawing as quickly as they can. They want to, their energy takes them into trying everything in the world, exploring it, et cetera, right? But they're landing in a field where the dynamic of the families and the dynamic of the world is being energetically absorbed. It's like you go to the beach and it feels like one energy field. You go to a slum, it makes another energy field. You go to the forest and it's another energy field. Human beings are very, very sensitive to energy fields. We're really antennas for energy fields. And a child comes in and doesn't have cognitive awareness yet, and it's just reacting to energy fields. So if there's tension in the house, the child will feel it. If the parents are having a fight 5 rooms away and the child can't hear it, they'll start crying anyway because the energy field has been picked up. We know this from science. So what happens is parents do their best as they know it to either discipline or control or manipulate or et cetera, the children, being loving sometimes, being not loving other times, being angry sometimes, and whatever's going on in the family dynamic, fights between people shutting down, not being able to deal with their own issues. All that gets registered in these trillions of neurons we have, right? And becomes a background template. And very quickly, the paradigm of judgment comes in. This one's a good one. That one's not good. You're good enough this way. You're not good enough that way, which becomes a download. It's like you downloaded something to your computer that looked at all your programs and said, well, my Excel is not good enough. My Word document, you Apple don't really do a good job here, right? But this one does a good job, right? So it's the matrix that gets downloaded. Here's where I would ask everybody to think about what's happening to them in their lives, right? Without being taught the skills of social emotional learning, how to deal with the emotional reactions, should start having emotional reactions, which is anger, acting out behaviors, wetting their beds, crying a lot, etc. Right? Because they're sensitive to all the environment around them, and they develop coping mechanisms. And we've all developed coping mechanisms. And there's 6 major coping mechanisms I like to speak about. And so everybody can think about theirs. One is fight. Kids have temper tantrums and they fight and they push back and etc. So one's fight. Another is flight. Flight means you become an avoider. Something around you gets really tense personally or emotionally. You're out of there. I was an avoider because my family dynamic with my mother. I became a flighter. I had to work on healing that in my relationships in life, which is, okay, it gets really serious. I'm not showing up for it. I'm out of here. I don't want to deal with this craziness, right? So we have that avoider tendency in us. Another one is seek approval. It's a big one, okay? Mommy wants me to be this way. I'm not doing enough, so I need her approval. I'll just go along with whatever she wants, no matter what. And piece by piece, we lose our own initiatives, and the parents guide us into what they want from us rather than what we want for ourselves. In a lot of cases, on a sliding scale. So seek approval. You go out in the world, and this one's more popular in that you want this group to do this, so you start modulating your beliefs and behaviors to seek approval. At the end of the day, you get the worst case scenario. You get tyrants who have these people who will mass murder others to keep approval and keep themselves in the system. Thus the Hitlerian genocide and what we see in all the people who hurt others on behalf of keeping their position in the world safe, their little game going in the world. On the family basis, we got to do this. We got to show up for the rest of the world this way. If you can't do this, you got to go along with that, because otherwise we'll have social condemnation, right? So seek approval is a major coping mechanism of the human species, in the absence of universal collaboration, co-creative skills, right? And those are serious skills. Yeah, another one is control. We all have a little control freak in us sometimes when we lose it. And we've all met people who have major control freaks, right? Another one is manipulate. So kids start telling little white lies, and they can grow to big white lies, and then we get a world where the politicians are manipulating us and other bosses are manipulating us, et cetera, and we learn passive aggressive manipulation, et cetera, okay? And so, and the last one is fix, which is otherwise known as enabling. So fix means I'm not getting attention the way I need, et cetera, but I'll connect another people by taking care of another person in a way that that's not healthy. So you end up marrying an alcoholic or a drug addict and making excuses for them and going along with domestic violence and things like that, enabling, right? So you put it all together and you get a world that's running in its stress moments significantly on enabling, right? And enabling happens at the end of the day is trying to maintain a system that supports those people at the top who manage and control the system and are the most beneficiary of it, right? So then you get, throughout human history, endless rebellions against authority figures, because and authority figures trying to by grabbing more and more of your land, of other people's land, and so you get endless wars between tribes and et cetera. And it all boils down to human history hasn't taught us the skills that we now know are available to learn how to be with each other in healthy ways and be within our own inner divine essence. So we're living out our divine essence. A lot of natural God-given caregivers become caretakers because they're trying to compensate for their lack of feeling connected in a healthy, safe way with other human beings, so that they're in their natural, what my gifts are. Is my gift to be an artist? Is my gift to do this? Is my gift to that? How am I designed to relate to the world in a healthy way, rather than in a way that controls us, right? And, and then you get tyrannies that want to say, you can only behave this way. We've got a lot of them in the world still. Tyranny that say, you can only behave this way because this is the way I can control you to go along with what I think is the way we need to be. Because I have not been trained to do it any other way. And my colleagues, and I have real privilege in being able to control you and decide what's good for all of us.
Yes, and we're seeing that in Technicolor action, right? All over the world, right?
All over the world, day in and day out, in small ways in families, in small ways at workplaces, in small ways, right? And it really comes down to the basis of we're not trained in emotional intelligence and life skills by which we can be prosperous collectively, by which we can thrive, by which we can make good decisions, by which we can avoid poverty, crime, drug addiction, medicating ourselves with everything from, heroin to whatever the latest craze is, etc.
Yes, and you bring up a very, very important point, something that is near and dear to my heart. I am a believer, and I subscribe to the theory that the most important relationship each of us are going to have is with the divine within us.
And exactly right.
With the divine within us, we see the divinity within every person, and we stop seeing the outer wrapping, and we see the essence and the spirit and the energy of the person. And that's where the emotional intelligence and that human connectivity for collaboration and co-creation starts happening.
Yes.
And we can train the young to go there naturally. Some cultures train their young naturally because it's cultural.
Right.
But more and more as we embrace the modern day capitalism, that is being eroded. And I love the work Equip Our Kids is doing. And we are doing that same work with adults, but it's harder to change adults because they're
It is. And there's good reason why it's harder, and the same reason why it's possible, right? And it's called the brain. And the brain, the brain takes in everything. We know that from science. It takes in everything. So it's got all this background template going on. How this one reacted in this situation, all that becomes a kind of model, mirror neurons, etc. So the reason to get focused on the kids more much is their brains have not taken and absorbed as much as adults. Adults have already had their habits that don't work. They really aren't effective. That's why we have a mental health crisis in America, where you have 25% people taking meds, huge amount of diabetes, etc. Because sugar addiction, you name it. Because the background habits are, what do I need to comfort myself with in the moment and escape the pain in the moment, right? And the background images are, I've been doing this habit so many long, and then if I get triggered, the back part of my brain takes over, right? I'll have a temper tantrum I didn't really want to have. I'll say something to this person I really didn't want to do. I'll say, I should have followed my intuition on that, and I didn't, because your intuition is your higher knowingness. Every kid comes in psychic with higher knowingness, and then piece by piece it gets smashed down to somewhat trivial levels. And then we rush to psychics to get us to say, what's the real reality here, right?
Very much so. And in the interest of time, we have 10 minutes left. I would love to open this up for conversation.
Let's do it.
Jay. And go ahead, Marquise. I see you're all ready.
Yes, Dr. Levin, first of all, Dr. Cass, thank you for having it. Dr. Levin, thank you for the work that you've been doing. I am literally, I was trained in social emotional learning in Chicago
Oh,
about
fantastic.
a decade ago. Yeah, so it's a lot of fun to be able to connect with some of its
That's
initiatives.
great.
My question centers around a couple of things. One, the American public education system has been what it's been 120 years now. And there's no interest in changing it because it supports the current social model that we have from a mental perspective. And it develops employees. How do we take social emotional learning, which has the ability to completely transform society? How do we take that and make that interesting to corporations in a way that benefits them, such that we don't have to wait for the kids to grow up and lose a generation, but we can insert somewhere in the middle and begin to truly transform it?
Right. So cracking the corporation code is crucial. They got behind STEM. We have a campaign to get them behind social emotional learning. COVID really delayed that campaign, so we're back at it now. Corporations are getting hip. They must hire for emotional intelligence to get the workplaces they need. They cannot keep running the authoritative top-down machines that they've been doing and still expect to get maximum productivity out of their phone. From Google on down to many others, the tests they've been doing say we've got to change our culture. They're hiring culture changers to come in and work with them pretty much on the highest level. Some of them are on our board. A couple of them are on our board. So we understand that business has to get behind it. And yet the machinery of businesses, we've got, we need more boots on the ground to get to deal with them. So we're working to raise money. We're out sending letters to the Fortune 500 right now to see if we can get them to open up their doors for supporting social emotional learning. But on the mass scale, because of COVID and the money coming in now through the mental health money, billions coming in through mental health money, there is a real push to change the schools with social emotional learning. We're seeing the first real surge in American history of this. And the question is, how do we nurture this along and keep the grassroots organizations growing? We have 23 state alliances. We need 52 state alliances, including territories. And it's all being worked on. That's the good news. And it's now just a process of learning how we could be more effective, even as some of the crazy right-wing people start slamming social emotional learning because they think it's teaching white racism, anti-white racism. So, we're dealing with a culture that's not healthy, and step by step, we've got to learn how to collect collaboratively. And the collaboration going on in the movement now is really, really healthy and really good. And I would encourage you to be optimistic.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
Okay. Thank you for that amazing question, Marquise, and thank you, Jay. And Dr. Menon, Nandini, you're a medical doctor. You are dealing with the health space in the healthcare industry. So share your thoughts, questions. Let's get this conversation exciting.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been a really interesting conversation and very personal to me because of the mental health challenges, obviously from the pandemic. Healthcare has been pretty big on the hit with regard to emotional intelligence and burnout. Actually. And sorry?
I said overwhelmed, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the statistics have come that, the Mayo Clinic just released their series on burnout. And they said that even if a third of the people that they surveyed follow through on redirecting or retiring in the next 2 years, we're going to have a shortage of something like 90,000 doctors, physicians in 2025 or 2027 or something like that, which is a staggering number. And on a personal note, I have, I have been enhanced, felt the power of learning about emotional intelligence. And I don't mean to say that doctors don't have emotional intelligence. We do, but we usually only direct it when we're in the room with a patient. And then when we leave, it stops for some reason. We don't believe we need to internalize that dynamic.
It's like, you know? Am I one up and one down now that I walked out of the room rather than am I relating?
Yeah.
What's my power base? How do I respond? It's the habitual training of the human species. Yes.
Yes, and I want to bring back to the point where you made, and Dr. Kasturi said about, when you teach the children, they come home and they teach the adult, and you had a significant thing about, yes, and then the child will say, you can't talk to me like that. But sometimes that's a dangerous situation for the child, depending on the adult that they're dealing with,
Sure.
And and it's kind of the same thing in medicine, where we're so hierarchical.
Yep.
And more. We're learning about it, and there's a lot of discussion. But I think there is a huge need for us as physicians and as healthcare workers to learn about our own emotional intelligence, because
Amen.
we don't process
right.
our own. Mm-hmm. And I think that is one of the biggest issues with burnout. And so, no question, just a comment that it is something that's universal that needs to be addressed.
Well, there are programs and practices out there.
So
Institutions need to adopt those programs and practices on where they can and start retraining adult staffs. We decided to work on the next generation and leave the current generation to its own devices. But encourage things like everybody should go take a course in nonviolent communication in the world. So we do what we can.
Yes.
There's a lot of work going on in the adult world, and we hope as the kids grow up, they'll help model for the older folks how to be in the world.
Excellent.
Yes, I hope so too.
Thank you, Nandini, and thank you, Jay. One quick question, Cruz. If you have thoughts or question, go ahead and share. Cruz is joining us from Belize, and I want Belize to have a voice. Go ahead, Cruz.
Hi, good morning. Unfortunately, I joined the conversation a bit late. My question would be, I work a lot with youths because of the sports that I am involved with. But in Belize, we don't have that connection with emotional intelligence. What advice would Jay provide to me that I can somehow show the kids, the youths, to start to work, to start to have that emotional intelligence whenever they participate in any activity, being sport or in school.
Right.
So Jay, for some context, Cruz is a vice president of the Football Federation of Belize, and he works with FIFA.
Oh, I see. Okay. So I would suggest two things. One is, to the degree you're engaged with any schools and youth organizations, you find a way to inform them about these programs, send them even to casel.org, casel.org, where they can learn a lot about the programs. See, you've got inspiring educators to do that. If you have business associations, if you have collections with business associations, then you can bring in speakers. We have a speakers bureau that can, at least open people's ideas and mindsets about this. You have to work in the arenas that where you can make a small amount of difference by introducing new ideas and the people who can convey those ideas. And that's the best anybody can do, actually, at the moment in the adult population. Belize is a very difficult culture. I know a fair amount about Belize, and I know a lot of the pains that the society experiences from its own, fundamental lack of emotional intelligence on a mass level, if you want to put it nicely. So, you've got to, all of us just have to work in our own worlds as best as we can, educate ourselves and share that education where we can. That's it. That's the best answer I think I can give.
Thank you, Jay. And Cruz and I are committed to making that difference in Belize. So thank you for asking that very important question, Cruz. And thank you for partnering to get things done differently, because the children are capable of learning and changing. And through them, we do have the opportunity to bring about the change.
Yeah, the brains don't have the trillions of negative mindsets that we already have. The earlier you get them, the better results. There's one survey, they took 4-year-olds who had training for 2 years and followed them for 25 years. They so outperformed the equal control group in terms of life success, happiness, lack of crime, drugs, et cetera, than the control group of the same kinds of kids. Just 2 months at 4 years old.
Very much so. So as we bring this to a close, Jay, I want to carve out a couple of minutes so that you can share with everybody, our live audience and our audience who are going to watch it repeatedly on YouTube over the months to come. How can they get in touch with you, Equip Our Kids? How can they get engaged? And when they see an opportunity to contribute and be a part of the change, how do they do that?
Well, they can easily do it through our website, which is where we have a donation button, which is equipourkids.org, EQUIP, the word equip, ROUR, kids.org. Hopefully easy to remember, equipourkids.org. And you go there and there's buttons to donate. You can always write to contact@equipourkids.org, just contact@equipourkids.org, send emails. You can do it through the website. There's a lot of information and opportunities for different actions and behaviors on the website. Help build a youth organization, help talk to businesses. There's a parent guide for how you can bring these practices into the home. So I would just encourage people to go there, explore around, and take advantage of what's there, and see themselves as, ambassadors of mental health and healthy human relationships in the world, and start in your own little world.
Thank you so much, Jay. Appreciate all you are doing and the awareness you're creating in the global marketplace for the importance of this transformation. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And I cannot wait to continue to work with you, support this cause, and bring other people in who truly see the value of this. So it's my hope that as we go through our day-to-day life, as my community always hears me say, every human interaction is our opportunity for transformation.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to find a way to engage with the young and help them transform, and in that process, truly realize our own transformation.
Great. Well, super well put. You're doing a great job here. I have a quick question for you before we go. After the formal your recording is finished, are there people who may want to have questions? Is there time for that or potential for that?
Yeah,